Hey everybody, welcome back. So for today's project, I'm going to show you how to remove and clean these exhaust valves that were found on the F and S chassis. So they're a little bit different than compared to later designs, but they are pretty simple to work on. So with that being said, let's pull these off, show you how to clean them and how to get them reassembled. All right, so the first thing you want to do is you want to remove these two plastic covers, and the covers are just held on by these two wire bails. So go ahead and pull these off. May need a screwdriver. Sometimes you just do it with your hands. So when you do remove these, just know that there's a spring behind it. And the only thing that's going to be holding it on there is friction as far as the cover to the valve. So make sure that this thing doesn't fly off and you don't lose that spring. So what we're going to do is we're just going to cover comes right off. So there's a spring in the cover. So we're gonna put these down and we're gonna do the same thing on this side. Same thing, spring in the cover. All right, so now that we have the valves off, we can see the valve assemblies, and these are just plastic, right? The fronts of them. And if you look, they are held together by a plastic zip tie. Yes, that is correct. That is what SKIDOO used back in the day to assemble these valves. They did use a zip tie. So if you do see these and you say, what the hell, that is how they came. So what we need to do is we need to separate this front part of the valve from the back. And what we're gonna do is we're gonna very carefully remove that ultra important zip tie, so then we can then unscrew this part of the front of the valve and pull it off. So all I'm going to do is I'm going to use a micro screwdriver to get underneath it, and again I'm going to be very careful because I do not want to break this thing, and I'm just going to put it over the edge. Comes right off. And if you look, somebody has already replaced this with their own improvised version. It should not be 3 zip ties in one. So we're going to put that to the side. And then we're going to go over to the other one. Same thing. We're going to get underneath the zip tie. Going to lift it up, go over, pull it off. And that's how the factory one is. So what we're going to do is we're going to put our little micro screwdriver in there. We're going to separate the bellows from the front of the valve. Put our screwdriver aside, and then we're going to take our 10 mil, loosen it up, and then we're just going to unscrew the front of the valve and take it off. All right, so for the next step, the bellows is held onto the valve by a little spring clamp in the back. So all I'm going to do is I'm going to just use these set of angled pliers. I'm going to use it to grab the little snap ring. Pull it off, and then we pull it off, and then there's the little snap ring. So it comes off pretty easily. There's two 5mm Allen head bolts. There's one right there, there's one right there, and they're holding the assembly onto the cylinder. So we're just gonna go ahead and remove those. And these should not be that tight. There's two. And then go ahead and take a screwdriver. Pull the assembly away. There you go. So that comes right off. And then go ahead and pull the valve out. All right, so we have both valves out at this point. So as you can tell, they're very oily. They're covered in oil. So that's the PTO side. And here is the mag side, and the mag side is just drenched in oil. Not sure what's going on with that, but needless to say, there's a lot of oil on it. So if you look, there's a couple O-rings on it, so pay attention to that. And then as far as the alignment, the chamfered edge, I believe it's supposed to go down. So if you look, right, there's a chamfer. I believe, I'll have to look it up, it goes down. So we'll confirm that on reassembly. But for the most part, they look pretty clean. I've seen worse. So let's go ahead and bring these over to the bench, get them cleaned up, and then get them reassembled. All right, so we're over on the bench, got everything disassembled. So typically what I'll do is I'll spray everything down with brake cleaner to get all the heavy oil and residue off of it. And I got my ultrasonic cleaner warming up. So as far as cleaning, what I'll use is I'll just use a razor blade, rasp brush, steel brush, and then I'll use a roll-lock disc with a Scotch brake pad, and we'll just go at it and clean it up. So one thing to be aware of is that on these valves, there's an O-ring and then there's a washer, and basically that's the order they go. We're going to be replacing those O-rings. They came in the kit. All right, so we have all the gaskets scraped down. Ultrasonic cleaner is up to temp. So all we're gonna do is we're gonna throw these in there for about, I don't know, 15 minutes. Check them and see how we're doing. All right, everything's clean. Pulled everything out of the parts washer, sprayed it down, hosed it off, blew it out, whatever. So the valves are all set to go. So looking at these valves, I went on Google trying to figure out where these things came from, because this is the first time I actually saw this style, and apparently this is a early design for the 670s, where it's actually a two-piece RAVE valve, where there's a washer, a nut, a washer, and the O-ring, and that's how it's supposed to be. So as far as I can tell, these RAVE valves only came out in the 670s, in the 94s, the 95s, and 90s. Well, nope, 94 and 95, as far as I can tell, because for 96, the two-piece assembly is no longer represented. So, valve, washer, nut, washer, O-ring. So, all right, let's go ahead and get these back in the sled and get it back together. All right, so ready to start reassembly. So if you look at the valve, there is a long edge and a short edge as far as the bevel. So when you put these in, the short side goes up and the long side goes down. So all we do is we're just going to slide that in there. Make sure it travels without any resistance. All right, so we're doing the same thing on the other one. Make sure they slide in there pretty good with no resistance, and they feel pretty good. All right. All right, so we have the assembly ready to go back on. We've got the gasket on there, and it is in the correct orientation. So you want these two holes to be lining up with that notch on the bottom. And I preloaded the screws just to help out with the alignment. And all we're gonna do is we're gonna slide it over the valve, and then we're gonna align it, push it in. And then we're gonna take our 5mm Allen head, start the screws. So then we're just going to snug them in. Now we just go ahead and torque them down. Again, these don't have to be very tight, so don't go too crazy on them. All right, so at this point, we're ready to put on the back half of the bellow. Now I'm going to do is I'm just going to spray it down with some WD-40. Just so it slides on the assembly a little bit easier. And when you do it, you want to make sure that the clip is facing up so you have easy access to it. Slide it on there. Now we're just going to grab our pliers, and then we're going to put that clip in the back. So that's on there. Do the other one. Slide it on there. That's good. Grab our pliers again. Okay, so that's good to go. Alright, so next step, we're going to put the front part of the valve assembly on, and we're just going to screw it on there. Make sure you get it on there straight, because these are plastic going onto a metal stem. You don't want to strip it out, so take your time. And just go ahead and tighten those by hand. You can put a socket on it to begin. It's a metal stud going into a plastic assembly, and if you torque on it, you're just going to strip it. So just do it hand tight. All right, so at this point, what you want to do is you want to get the bellow back onto the front part of the valve. And the easiest thing to do is just grab like a pick tool and gently go behind it, and you're basically going to stretch it so it is over the lip. So what I'm going to try to do is I'm going to try to show you what I did on this side and do it on this one. So what you can do is press the valve in, and then get it started. All right, so now we're on. What you want to do is you want to check the valve, make sure that it's not hanging up on anything. Feels pretty good. So now at this point, what we want to do is we got to take our zip tie and we're going to reinsert it into the bellow and make sure this is functioning as a clamp onto it. So what you need to do is when you install the zip tie, you have to make sure that the head of the zip tie is not going to interfere with any of the internal structure of the housing so it doesn't get caught up on it. So we're going to put it right around here. And all right, so we have the zip ties on. The valves still go in and out with zero issues. We're pretty good on that. So the only thing really left to do at this point is we got to put the bails on, right? And the bails are pretty easy. Just snap them there and then put them out of the way. So then we're going to take our cap and our spring. We're going to put it back on there, right? And then put it in the correct orientation. All right. That's one. Spring on. All right, so there you go. Pretty easy to do. Not that very complicated. These RAVE valves, in comparison to the newer style, these are very simple. These are very basic. As you saw, there isn't that much to it as far as getting them off. So go ahead, service your RAVE valves. They definitely affect top-end performance. If there's any questions or concerns, go ahead and leave them in the comments box. I'll get back to you as soon as I can. And as always, thanks for watching and have a great day. See ya.